Hello everyone, welcome back or welcome to my channel. For today's video, I'm going to show you how to crochet this little ghost plushie. The materials that you'll be needing are white yarn for the ghost, two colored yarns for the hat and the little belt, some orange for the pumpkin, and brown for the stem. I did use the same color for the belt and the pumpkin, and you'll also be needing some black yarn for the eyes if you don't have button-on eyes. Also, if you want to not do the pumpkin and make a smiley face instead, which I will show in the video, you will be needing some black yarn. I will go ahead and list out all the materials that you'll be needing in the description box below as well, but that's all out. Now that that's all out of the way, let's go ahead and begin. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to start off with a magic ring. You can start off with the magic ring method, or you can do the slip knot method, whichever one you prefer. For the slip knot, you can make your slip knot and chain 2 and work into the first one, or do a slip knot, chain 4, slip stitch into the first chain, and then work into that circle. But for me, I'm going to be using the magic ring method. So I'm going to go ahead and make my magic ring and chain 1. And into your circle, however you began, we're going to go ahead and make 6 single crochets. So go ahead and make 6 single crochets into your center circle, and that's going to be round number 1. And then once you have your 6 single crochets, if you have your magic ring, you're going to pull on the small strand of yarn to close the center loop. And then to finish off round 1, we're going to go ahead and slip stitch into the very first stitch that we made. And then we're going to chain 1. For round 2, we're going to do an increase in each stitch around. So go ahead and increase all the way around. At the end, you should have a total of 12 single crochet stitches. Feel free to pause the video and I'll meet you when I'm done. I have my 12 single crochet stitches. I'm going to slip stitch into my very first stitch, chain 1, and then for round 3 we're going to do a repeat of 1 single crochet and 1 increase all the way around until you get to the very end. So again, 1 single crochet and 1 increase all the way around until you get to the very end. And you should do this repeat a total of 6 times, and your last stitch should be an increase. So again, go ahead and continue doing 1 single crochet and 1 increase all the way around. At the end of round 3, you should have a total of 18 stitches. I've done my 1 single crochet and 1 increase all the way around. I have a total of 18 stitches, and now I'm going to slip stitch into my very first stitch and then chain 1. And now we're on round number 4. The repeat for round number 4 is 2 single crochets and 1 increase all the way around until you get to the very end. You should repeat this a total of 6 times. So again, the repeat is 2 single crochets and an increase all the way around. And at the end of this round, you should have a total of 24 stitches. Okay, feel free to pause the video and I will meet you when I'm done. I'm here at the end of round 4. I have 24 stitches. I'm going to slip stitch into my first stitch and chain 1. And now we're on to round number 5. The repeat for round number 5 is 3 single crochets and an increase all the way around until you get to the very end. You should do this repeat a total of 6 times. So again, the repeat pattern for this round is 3 single crochets and an increase all the way around until you get to the very end. At the end, you should have a total of 30 single crochets. Feel free to pause the video and I will go ahead and meet you when I'm done. Okay, I just finished round number 5 and I have a total of 30 stitches all the way around, and I'm going to finish off with a slip stitch and a chain 1. And now we're not going to do any more increases. Now we're just going to be working on the body of our ghost. So we're ending off around here, and now we're working on this part over here of our ghost. So for the next 10 rounds, we're just going to do single crochets all around. So no more increases or anything like that. We're just going to single crochet all the way around, and then at the end we're going to slip stitch, chain 1, and then repeat over and over again. For every single row, we should have the same exact row as this row over here, which is 30 stitches. So for the next 10 rows, we're going to keep a stitch count of 30. So again, all we're doing is for the next 10 rounds, we're just going to single crochet all around. No increases, we're not doing any more increases, we're just going to single crochet normally all the way around for 10 rounds. So this is row number 6, we should end on row number 15. If you want to make your ghost a little smaller or longer, that's completely up to you, but for this project I'm going to be doing just 10 rounds around for my single crochet stitch, which should leave me at round number 15 when I get to the end. So feel free to make the length of your ghost, and I will go ahead and pause the video right here, and I will meet you once I'm done. Okay, I'm back, and I just finished my 15th round. Also, it's my 10th round of my single crochet stitches, 15th round counting from the very beginning to where we are right now. But I just did my 10 continuous rounds of single crochet stitches, and then this is what it looks like so far. I'm just going to finish off with a slip stitch, chain 1, and now I'm just going to loosen up my yarn a little so we can work on placing the eyes. So you can place the eyes in 2 different ways. You can use button-on eyes like I did here with the safety, I think they're called safety eyes. You can either use these or you can use a darning needle and some black yarn. For my eye placements, I'm going to place them between rows 8 and 9, but you can place them wherever you want. So I'm going to be placing my eyes in between rows 8 and 9 with 3 stitches in between. Okay, so if you have a darning needle, you're going to want to take it and you're going to go into our working yarn and place it where you want them to be. So go from inside, bring your darning needle through like so, and then bring your darning needle through the stitch at the bottom and pull through, and do that a couple more times, 2 to 3 times, so it's a little bit more textured, a little bit more bulky. I think it looks nicer that way, but you can do that and then tie them at the back and then make your second one 3 stitches apart, so it would be on the 4th stitch like so. So it'd be 1, 2, 3 stitches in between. Okay, you can do it this way where you can go around a couple of times and then go through the second eye a couple of times and then tie them off from the inside if you don't have your safety eyes, but I do have safety eyes. I'm just showing this as an example. You can do it this way, and then also with your black yarn, if you want to add a mouth instead of the pumpkin that I used for my original piece, instead of this, and you want to add a smiley face, all you do is, again, you take your hook or your darning needle, and always make sure that you're starting off from the inside of our work so the yarn doesn't show. You always want to start off by taking your darning needle and working it through from the inside of our work. So you take your darning needle, you go underneath, and 1 row below your eye to the right, you want to insert your hook. And then what you want to do is you want to find the stitch diagonal to this, insert your needle, and then diagonal to this as well, and then you bring it back down here. Okay, you can do that, or you can skip the mouth and add the pumpkin in at the end, which I will show you later. As for the safety eyes, again, we're going to find rows 8 and 9, so starting from the top, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. So this is row 8 and 9. I'm going to place my safety eye in between them, like so. And before I place the back part of the safety eye, I'm just going to go ahead and grab the other one and place that one as well, skipping 3 stitches in between. 1, 2, 3, and then it'll go in the 4th. I'm going to push that in. And if I feel like the eye placement is good enough, then all I have to do is grab the back part of our safety eyes and just put them on. This way the safety eyes don't fall out. I've seen people do fabric glue to glue them on. I prefer to use the safety eyes. I also don't have fabric glue, but if you have them and you want to skip the sewing bits, then I guess fabric glue would be a lot easier to use. But I will be doing sewing, and I will not be using fabric glue. Anyway, so I've just added my safety eyes, and now we're going to go ahead and continue crocheting. And then after this, I will show you how to make the hands, the pumpkin, and then the witch's hat. Okay, so let's go ahead and continue. Okay, so I'm going to grab my hook, I'm going to put it back into my loop, and we are going to start off exactly where we left off. So we did our 5 rows of increases and then our 10 rows of just regular single crochet stitches. And now what we're going to do is we are going to do a decrease round, except we're only going to do it in the back loops only for this specific round. So our decrease round is going to consist of 3 single crochets and a decrease all the way around. So, and we're only going to do it in the back loops. So I'm going to go ahead and place my first single crochet in the back loop only. That's 1, 2, and 3. All of those are done in the back loop only, and now we're going to do a decrease in the back loop only. And to do that, we're going to insert our hook into the first stitch, grab yarn, pull up. We're going to keep that loop on our hook, and then we're going to insert our hook into the stitch right after, grab yarn, pull up, and then we're going to go ahead and take the yarn that we just pulled up and pull it through the other 2. And I'll go ahead and show that one more time. Again, we're only working in the back loops for this round. We're going to do 3 back loop single crochets, so just regular single crochets, 1, 2, and 3, and now a decrease, again in our back loop only. So insert your hook into the back loop of the next available stitch, grab yarn, pull up. We have 2 loops on our hook, and then we're going to insert our hook into the next available stitch after that, grab yarn, pull up. We have 3 loops on our hook. The yarn that we just pulled up, we're going to grab it and we're going to pull it through. That's just how I like to do my decreases. If you have a different way that you would prefer, go ahead and do them, but make sure to do them in the back loop only. So go ahead and repeat 3 single crochets and a decrease in the back loop only all the way around until you get to the very end. At the end of the round, you should have a total of 24 stitches. Feel free to pause the video and I will go ahead and meet you when I'm done. I just did my last decrease and I'm going to slip stitch into my first stitch and chain 1. And now we're moving on to the second round, and the second round after our back loop stitches. And for reference, we're working on the bottom part of our ghost now. So the second round, we're not going to work into the back loops anymore. We're going to just do them regularly. And the repeat for this round is 2 single crochets and a decrease. So just do 2 regular single crochets and then a decrease. So the same exact thing. Insert your hook into the next available stitch, grab yarn, pull up. Again, insert your hook into the next available stitch, grab yarn, pull up. We have 3 loops on our hook. The yarn that we just pulled, we're going to grab it again and pull it through the other 2. Okay, go ahead and repeat that. And the repeat is going to be 2 single crochets and a decrease all the way around. At the end of this round, you should have a total of 18 stitches. Feel free to pause the video and I will meet you when I'm done. I just did my last decrease. I have a total of 18 stitches, and I'm just going to slip stitch, chain 1, and we're going to loosen up our yarn again. Right now would be a great time to grab your stuffing. You can use yarn scraps if you have any, some old pieces of fabric that you cut up, or polyfill stuffing, whichever one you prefer. So go ahead and stuff your working piece. Okay, I just filled mine with polyfill stuffing. And you can stuff as you go if you want it to be a little bit more firm or if you want to add more stuffing later on. But let's go ahead and move on to our third decrease round. So the repeat pattern for this is just going to be 1 single crochet and 1 decrease all the way around until you get to the very end. At the end of this round, you should have a total of 12 stitches. Again, the repeat is 1 single crochet and 1 decrease all the way around until you get to the very end. At the end of this round, you should have a total of 12 stitches. I just finished off with my last decrease. I have a total of 12 stitches. As always, I'm going to slip stitch and chain 1. And now for our last decrease round, we're just going to do decreases all the way around. So no more regular single crochets, we're just going to decrease all the way around. And before you finish this round, it would be a really good idea to stuff it in more if you still want to stuff your project, because after this we're going to sew it and then we'll be done. And if you want to stuff it in after this round, it'll be really difficult because there's not going to be enough space. So again, this is our last round, and all we're doing is decreasing all the way around. Okay, go ahead and do your decreases. At the end of the round, you should have a total of 6 stitches. Okay, I've just done my decrease round, and I have a total of 6 stitches. As always, we're going to slip stitch into the very first stitch, chain 1. And now we're going to go ahead and grab our scissors and we're going to cut our yarn, but I'm going to cut it a little long because we're going to use this strand of yarn to sew in the rest of the hole. So cut a couple of inches extra, and don't forget we finished off with a slip stitch and a chain 1. Don't forget to chain 1 at the end. And then we're just going to pull that yarn through, tighten it up a little, and there you go. Now I'm going to go ahead and grab my darning needle. I'm going to attach my yarn to it. Maybe I'll do it better. So I've attached my yarn, and all we're going to do is we're going to go back and forth through these stitches. You can go through the entire stitch, or you can go through just the front loop of each stitch. So you can either choose to go through the entirety of the stitch or just the front loop. I'm going to do the front stitches only, just because I feel like it gives a better finish. And I'm just going to go back and forth through the entire thing, kind of like how you would a drawstring bag. And once all that's done, you just pull on it and it closes. And now all we're going to do is, I finished off with my yarn here. I'm going to turn my works to the side, and I'm going to bring my yarn through the stitches like so, across, pull them through. And then with this little loop that I left, I'm going to put my hook through it, and I'm going to pull to knot it off. And then I'm just going to bring my darning needle through the bottom, and I'm going to bring my yarn off to the side of my work to make sure it doesn't come undone. And then I'm just going to snip it off. Okay. And then there you have the body portion of your ghost, and now I will show you how to make the little bumps at the bottom. So for the bumps, go ahead and grab your yarn again, and we're going to make a slip knot. And I'm going to start off at the back of my work. So remember how we made a row where we did the back loop stitches only, which left this little bump at the bottom, these little bumps? We're going to work into these bumps now. So what you want to do is, through the back of your work, so away from your face, you're just going to insert your hook through one of the back loops, doesn't matter which one. And then the yarn that you just made your slip knot with, you're just going to grab it with your hook and pull it through and do a chain 1 to secure it on. Okay, and now what we're going to do is, into the same place where we inserted our hook and our yarn, into that same space we're going to do 3 single crochets. So we just inserted our hook into the front bump. Into that same bump, we're going to do 3 single crochets. All of the 3 are going to be in that same one bump. And then after you do the 3, find the next bump right next to it, the next stitch, insert your hook, and slip stitch. And then immediately after, go into the bump right after, and again, do 3 single crochets. And we're just going to repeat that over and over again. After the 3 single crochets, find the next stitch, insert and slip stitch, and into the stitch after that, we're going to do 3 single crochets. And then into the stitch after, we're going to do a slip stitch, and then into the next stitch, 3 single crochets. So we're going to do a slip stitch into the next one, and then our repeat is basically going to be the same exact thing. So into the next stitch, we're going to do 3 single crochets. The stitch after, we're going to do a slip stitch. Stitch after, 3 single crochets. The stitch after, a slip stitch. So we're going to do 3 single crochets and a slip stitch, 3 single crochets and a slip stitch, and we're going to repeat that all the way around until we get to the very end. I'm here at the end, and now all I'm gonna do is I finished off with 3 single crochets, and I'm gonna slip stitch, and I'm just gonna slip stitch into the very first set I did. So in the beginning we did 3 single crochets in 1 loop. I'm gonna slip stitch into that loop. Okay, and I'm just gonna go ahead and slip stitch, chain 1, and then snip off my yarn and then pull it through. Don't forget to chain 1 before you pull it through. Okay, and then there we have our little ghost body, very cute. And now we're gonna go ahead and work on the hands, the pumpkin, and the witch's hat. Let's go ahead and start off with the pumpkin. And to start off the pumpkin, I'm gonna go ahead and make a magic ring. And I'm going to go ahead and chain 1. Into this magic ring, I'm gonna do 5 single crochets. So go ahead and make 5 single crochets into your magic ring, or however you would like to begin. That's 3, 4, and 5. Okay, I'm going to just pull it tight so it closes, and then I'm going to slip stitch into my very first stitch, and then I'm going to chain 1. And that's round number 1. For round number 2, we're going to be doing increases. So just increase in each stitch all the way around until you get to the very end. Since we started with 5, with this increase round, we should have a total of 10 ending off. So go ahead and increase all the way around. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Perfect. Once you have your 10 single crochet stitches, we're just going to slip stitch and chain 1. And now for the next 2 rounds, we're just going to do regular single crochet stitches. No increases or anything like that. We're just doing 2 rounds, keeping a stitch count of 10. Okay? And then this is going to be a very quick pumpkin. It's going to be very tiny. So go ahead and do your 2 rounds of single crochet stitches, and I will go ahead and meet you when I'm done. I did my 2 rows of single crochet stitches, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to slip stitch into my very first stitch, chain 1, and I'm going to cut my orange yarn off and pull through. Okay, this is what I have so far, and now I'm going to go ahead and grab my brown yarn. Before I attach my brown yarn, I think it would be a lot easier if we took the loose strands of yarn that we have and we just tuck them into what we have of our pumpkin. It makes it easier to work with, and because the pumpkin is really small, you probably won't need any more filling into it, but that is up to you. But anyway, we have, again, we started off with 5 single crochets and then an increase and then 2 rounds of regular single crochet stitches. And now I'm going to grab my brown yarn and I'm going to make a slip knot. And we're going to be working into the back loops only again. So what you want to do is you're going to insert your hook into the back loop only. You can insert it wherever you want, but I prefer to insert it exactly where we snipped our orange yarn off, which is right over here. I think it just makes it look neater. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my hook and I'm going to insert it into the back loop only of the last round that we just did. And with that, I'm going to grab the slip knot that I made with my brown yarn. I'm going to adjust it to my hook size, and I'm going to pull it through and chain 1 to make sure that it is firmly attached to our yarn. And you can also tuck in the brown piece of yarn that we have that is a part of what we just attached, so it's out of the way. And all we're going to be doing is we're going to be doing a round of pure decreases. So into the same place where we inserted our hook, we're going to insert our hook again in the back loop only, grab yarn, pull up. Find your next stitch, insert it into the back loop only, grab yarn, pull up. That yarn we just grabbed, we're going to pull it through the last 2. Okay, we're going to do that again. Insert your hook into the back loop only, grab yarn, pull up, insert your hook into the back loop only, grab yarn, pull up, grab that yarn and pull it to the last two. Okay, and we're going to do that all the way around. Again, make sure to do it in the back loop only. We're not going to be working into the front loops, but it just looks neater on our pumpkin if we only work into the back loops only for the brown stem. Okay, I am on my last decrease. Okay, and then I am going to go ahead and slip stitch into the first stitch that I have for that round, and then chain one. And then we're going to snip off some yarn. Not too short because again, we're going to be sewing. And make sure you finish off with a chain one before you pull your yarn through. And then we're going to go ahead and grab our darning needle. I'm going to attach my brown yarn to it. And again, we're only going to bring our hook through the front loops. So again, we're sewing this part at the top, the part where our brown stem is, the row that we just worked on. And instead of me going into both loops of the stitch like so, I'm only going to go through the front loop. I just feel it looks a lot neater that way. And just like with our ghost, we're going to go back and forth, kind of like a drawstring, and then pull it closed. Then I'm going to fasten it off by going through the stitches like so. And then making a knot, and then bringing my yarn down through the bottom. Okay, and there we have our little pumpkin. If you want, you can snip off the yarn, or you can leave the yarn if it's long enough so we can sew it onto our body portion of the ghost. If your yarn is too short or you've already cut it off, that's fine. We can always attach a new yarn later to sew this in, but you can always keep the yarn that you have if you haven't snipped it off yet. Anyway, that is our little pumpkin, so let's go ahead and move on. Let's go ahead and work on our hands. So we're going to start off with a magic ring, chain one, and into your loop we're going to do 6 single crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm going to close it. Then I'm going to slip stitch into my very first stitch, chain one, and for the second round we're just going to do 1 single crochet in each stitch around. So keeping a stitch count of 6. That's 3, 4, 5, and 6. And then once that's done, we're just going to slip stitch into the very first stitch, which might be a little difficult because this is a very tiny piece, but we're just going to go ahead and slip stitch, chain one, and we're going to cut a long strand of yarn because we are going to use that yarn to sew this hand onto our ghost. Okay, that's one piece. Go ahead and make another one, again starting off with a magic ring, 6 single crochets, and then for round 2, again, just 6 single crochets. I'm going to go ahead and make my second piece off camera, and I will go ahead and meet you when I'm done with that. Okay, now let's go ahead and move on to our hat. So for this piece, I used purple for the hat and orange for the little belt thing around the hat. For the tutorial, I'm going to make the hat orange, okay? So go ahead and get the main color for your hat. For this specific piece, I'm going to do orange, and I'm going to start off with a magic ring. Chain one, into the magic ring, I'm going to go ahead and do 6 single crochets. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. I'm going to pull my yarn to close the loop, and to finish this round off, I'm going to slip stitch and chain 1. For round 2, we're also just going to do single crochet stitches, so no increases. We're just keeping a stitch count of 6. So round 1 and 2 are both going to have just 6 single crochets. And then you're going to slip stitch and chain 1. For round number 3, we're going to do an increase in every single stitch around. So we're just going to increase in every stitch around, and at the end of the round we should have a total of 12 stitches. Again, round 1 and 2 we kept a stitch count of 6, and now for round 3 we're doing increases all the way around. And at the end you should have a total of 12 stitches. And then at the end, you're just going to slip stitch and chain 1. And now for the next 4 rounds, we're just going to single crochet in each stitch around. No more increases. We're just going to keep a stitch count of 12 for the next 4 rounds. Okay, I did my 4 rows of just single crochet stitches, and now I'm going to slip stitch, chain 1, and I'm going to just snip off my yarn. And now go ahead and grab the color that you want the little belt on your hat to be. For this piece, mine was orange, but for this one, I'm going to make it brown. So go ahead and just get the color yarn that you want this row to be. Okay. Like I said, mine is going to be brown, so I'm just going to make a slip knot. Then I'm going to insert my hook into the same place where we slip stitch, the stitch right after. And I chained 1. And now we're just going to do another row of single crochet stitches. No increases or decreases. We're just going to single crochet all around, keeping a stitch count of 12. I have my 12 stitches, and I'm just going to slip stitch, chain 1. I'm going to cut the brown yarn now. And now we're going to go ahead and move back to our other color, the main portion of our hat. And you can just stuff in your loose strands of yarn into your hat so they're out of the way. And I've just made a slip knot with my orange color, the main color of my hat. I'm going to insert my hook into one of my stitches of the little belt round that we did. I'm going to bring my yarn through and chain 1, and then I'm just going to tuck that extra yarn into the hat as well. Okay, and now we're going to go ahead and start the flat part of our hat. So the repeat of this round is going to be 1 single crochet and 1 increase all the way around until you get to the very end. So again, it's 1 single crochet and 1 increase all the way around until you get to the very end. You should have a total stitch count of 18 stitches. And once you're done, slip stitch and chain 1. And now for the second row of the flat part of our hat, the repeat is going to be 2 single crochets and an increase all the way around. Again, that's 2 single crochets and an increase all the way around. At the end, you should have a total of 24 stitches. And once you're done, just go ahead and slip stitch, chain 1, and cut off a long strand of yarn because you're going to use this yarn to sew in your hat to your ghost. Okay? And now let's go ahead and move on to the sewing portion. Before we sew anything onto the ghost, let's go ahead and take the extra strands of yarn that we have from our ghost itself and tuck them in. That way the excess yarn that we have from our other pieces don't get in the way, and it's a lot more manageable to work with because no loose ends are going to get in your way when you're working into the other ones. So I'm just going to go ahead and use my darning needle and weave these ends into my work. And I'm going to do them for both. So I'm going to attach my yarn to my hook. I'm just going to go into my work and pull the needle through. I'm going to do that a couple times, make sure it's very fastened in. And then the extra strands, I'm just going to snip off. Okay. Okay, so let's go ahead and start off with a pumpkin. The yarn that I had originally, the yarn that I had pull through, I decided to snip it off to show you how you can attach it if you have already snipped off your yarn. If you have your yarn already, the yarn thread already there, then you can go ahead and just attach your darning needle and you're good to go. But for the people who snipped it off, we're going to go ahead and grab some orange colored yarn. Orange, brown, white, doesn't matter. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my orange yarn, and on one end I'm going to make a slip knot. And on the other end I'm going to attach my darning needle. Okay? And of your pumpkin, figure out which side you want to be facing outward and which side you want to be facing away. So if you have one end that's messier than the other, then it should be facing the body, so it's basically hidden. You want the nice side facing out. My pumpkin ran away from me. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and take our darning needle and we're going to find the side that we want hidden, so the side that's going to not be facing out. And that side that's going to be hidden, we're going to take our darning needle and we're just going to push our needle through that area, okay? And the slip knot is there, so we can take our darning needle and pull it through that slip knot. That way the yarn is properly fastened onto this so it doesn't come undone, okay? And now you have your yarn attached to your pumpkin. Okay, so once you have your yarn attached to your pumpkin, what we're going to do now is we're going to sew this onto the ghost itself. So we just attached our yarn right over here. Okay, we're going to focus on sewing this area of the pumpkin to this area of our ghost. So what you want to do is find the center of your ghost. Okay, we can just put our pumpkin down. So this is where our pumpkin, or this is where our ghost is, and if we put our pumpkin where we want it to, the bottom part where our yarn is should be around this row of stitches. Okay, so with that being said, what you want to do is you have your pumpkin. When you place it onto your ghost where your yarn is attached, figure out what row it equates to. So if I want my pumpkin here, my yarn is attached here, and this part is very close to these two rows. Okay, so I'm going to focus on starting to sew in these two rows, and I'm going to figure out where the center is because I'm going to make sure my pumpkin is centered. So between these two rows, find the center, and the center is going to be between the eyes. So this stitch right over here, I'm going to just insert my hook or my needle through that stitch, okay? And then I'm going to pull it through, like so. And then what I'm going to do is the stitch right above the place where we just inserted our hook, inserted our needle, we are going to insert our needle through the stitch right above it. Like so. And then we're going to insert our needle into the pumpkin. Doesn't have to be perfect. you just have to stick your needle in to the row that is equivalent to this. So as long as it's in the same general area and you can sew it on, it works. And then I'm going to go ahead and find my next stitch on my ghost. So I stuck my needle into this stitch. This is the next stitch I'm going to be working with, the stitch right above. Insert my needle, pull it tight, and then insert my hook through the pumpkin, pull it tight, and then to fasten off, I'm going to take my hook, I'm going to bring it through the side of my pumpkin, and I'm just going to make a knot, and then bring it through my pumpkin a couple of times to make sure that it is properly fastened. And then when that's done, I'm just going to snip off the excess yarn. And then as for the other strand of yarn that we have for our pumpkin, I'm just going to use my hook, go through my ghost, grab that yarn, and I'm just going to pull it into the body. And then there you have your little pumpkin. Next is the hands, and since the hands are very tiny, the yarn that you have in the middle might be too big to just stuff in. So I'm going to snip off a little bit of that yarn, not the yarn that we're going to use to sew, but the one that's in the middle, and we're just going to stuff that into the center of our hand. Then we're going to grab our needle, and the first thing we're going to do is we're going to sew the top part of our hand together. So we have this row at the very top. What I'm going to do is with the inner stitches, so not the outer ones, but the inner ones, I'm just going to go back and forth through them. Okay, and once that's closed, it'll be easier to work with. We're going to grab our ghost, and I'm just going to go ahead and place it very close to the pumpkin, like this. And I'm just going to hold it down with my thumb, and I'm going to sew it on in the stitches near where my hand is. Okay. Then I'm just going to sew back and forth through both the body of our ghost and the hand. And do that one more time. Okay. And then once that's done, you can bring your hook through your hand, which might be a little difficult to do because the stitches are very tight. And once it's there, what you want to do is you want to attach your hand to your pumpkin. So I'm just going to go ahead and bring my yarn back through to this side, and I'm going to grab some of the yarn from our pumpkin, go back through the hand once it's attached to the pumpkin, and there we have one hand holding the pumpkin. And I'm just going to take this yarn and I'm going to push it through into the body, of the ghost. I'm just going to sew it in a couple of times to make sure it is securely fastened. Snip off your excess yarn, and I'm going to go ahead and do the other hand off camera. Okay, now let's go ahead and work on sewing in the hat. I've stuffed in the hat a little bit. You don't have to, but I wanted to. And I've already attached my darning needle to my yarn. And you can put your hat right above, to the side, it doesn't matter. We're just going to go ahead and figure out where we want our hat to be. And we are going to sew it in. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my needle, I'm going to bring it in through the underneath of my hat to around where the belt part of our hat is. That way the yarn is attached to the center around the curve of the hat, makes it easier to work with. Place your hat wherever you want it to be, and then hold it down with your fingers. Insert your hook down through the hat, and then through the yarn of your ghost. Okay. And then back up through the hat, and then through the next stitch of the hat, and we're basically just sewing it in back and forth. It doesn't have to be perfect because the yarn camouflages with the color of our hat, and it is also going to be just underneath the hat, so you won't notice it after you're done. So you're basically just getting a couple of stitches in, making sure they're connected, and you're just sewing it in back and forth. Once everything is sewn on, we're just going to fasten off by going through a couple of stitches, making a knot, going through the hat, and going through a couple of stitches to make sure your yarn is fully fastened. And then once it is, snip off your excess yarn, and there you are done with your ghost. I hope you enjoyed today's video, and if you did, please like, share, comment, and subscribe. If you have any suggestions for future videos, please let me know those in the comments below, and I will do my best to make those videos in the future. I also if you would like to see other videos for the future, please let me know those in the comments. Also, if you have any suggestions on how I can improve my teaching technique, or if you find a different way of learning better, please let me know, because I do take comments like that seriously, and I want to make sure that my videos are things that everyone can learn from. I do interchange between beginner tutorials and things that are for people who already know the basics of crocheting, kind of like this tutorial. There will be more beginner content soon in the future, but again, if you have any questions, comments, or anything, let me know those, and I will get back to you or adjust in the future. Anyway, again, I hope you enjoyed, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye!